Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Frivolous Views. I am your host, the person with the views that are frivolous. I am Carlene, and I'm very, very happy that my very first chat is going to be with a friend of mine. I've known Finnian Burnett now for, I think, a decade. I think it's been a decade. And they're a very good friend of mine. Let's just put it that way. So I'm very grateful to Finian for being my first chat guest on Frivolous Views. So, everyone, this is Finian Burnett. And what I'd like to do, Finn, if you wouldn't mind, if you would start out by just tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you?
Oh, absolutely. So, yeah, we have definitely known each other for at least a decade since that brief fling we had back in
Yes.
the early, yeah, okay.
Yes.
So I want to say that that was like 11 years ago, but I could be a little off. I mean, we're getting older now. It's hard to remember.
Yeah, a
So
little bit.
yes, I'm Finnian Burnett. I started writing in sapphic fiction in my first book was published in 2012, and that was late in life. I'm not going to say how late in life, but it was pretty late in life because I spent most of my life with such imposter syndrome and thinking I can't ever write anything. And some of that came from a couple of high school teachers who said you're just not good enough to be a published writer, which of course I wasn't. I was in high school, right?
Right.
But I took it to heart and I didn't write for many years. And then I finally came back to it as an older person. And I wrote several sapphic fiction novels. And then I went on to get a doctoral degree, and I somewhere in between like my master's and my doctoral I realized I just could not sustain writing a novel while also going through a doctoral program. And so I
Sure.
stopped writing for a couple years, except for really short flash fiction pieces. And that was how I got back into what ultimately became The Price of Cookies.
Okay. Okay. Now, where do you get your motivation to write? I mean, where do the stories come from? What kicks you in the ass and gets you to put words on a screen?
I feel that changes so much. I'm not what I consider a naturally motivated person. Like, I don't wake up every morning and be like, woo, I'm going to brush my teeth. Woo, I'm going to get on the treadmill. Woo, I'm going to write, 1,000 words. Like, I have to make myself every single day do the things that I have to do.
Sure.
So I really I schedule in writing time. Like, sometimes I have fantastic ideas that just come from nowhere and I'll jot down some notes about that. But usually for me, I write into ideas. So if I sit down and start writing, then I might get through like some quicksand, 5 minutes of quicksand writing, I call it. And then boom, one pure sentence. And after that, it's like the floodgates open and I can get something out. But a lot of people say, oh, well, I just have these incredible ideas and I just bust out 2,000 words because my ideas. I'm a working writer, is what I say. I have to make myself sit down and just do it, otherwise it won't get done.
Okay. Okay. Now, your most recent work is called The Price of Cookies.
Yes.
How would you classify The Price of Cookies? What is it?
It's called a novella in Flash, and specifically that's because it's novella length and it's comprised of flash fiction stories. So every story can stand alone. You can open the book and read any story and just read that and you have a story. But also they create an overall arc of the characters in the work. In The
Okay.
Praise of Cookies, it's like a lot less, it's way more nebulous than in my first novella in The Flash, The Clothes Make the Man. Every story in there was standalone, but it all revolved around Arthur, who is a trans man navigating, all sorts of situations. But you kind of had to read that all in a row because you had Arthur's arc and then it ends at the end. In The Price of Cookies, it's more that people are connected through the same shared living space, like they all live in this one small town. So you don't necessarily have to read one to understand what's happening in the other.
Okay. Now you say this is a novella in Flash. What the hell is Flash?
So flash
For
fiction.
the people out there that don't know, what is Flash?
I know it seems like to me like I'm so immersed in flash fiction is my life. So I keep forgetting there's people out there that have actually never heard of flash fiction because not everyone's obsessed with it the way I am. Essentially, flash fiction is any short story under 1,000 words. Some websites say under 1,500. I'm a purist. I think if you go over 1,000, you're eking into short story territory as opposed to flash. I actually really prefer microfiction, like stuff under 500 words and stuff like that. But yeah, basically it's a full story with an arc and movement and characters, but it's contained in these tiny packages.
Okay, and what draws you to them? Why? Why?
Part of I know it's so I am obsessed with flash fiction. It's part of it is the challenge that it you really have to hone your skill in order to have a character that someone falls in love with in 250 words. Like that takes a lot. And so for me, I really love that aspect of it. The other thing I like about it is because I have ADHD and also deal with depression. So there's times when I'm just like, I might only have like a 30-minute ray of sunshine, as I call it, in which to like bust
Sure.
out some creativity. I find that flash fiction, it takes so much less of that soul energy that I'm often using just to like survive life. And so being able to just sit down with a really short story that appeals to me. And then the other thing about it is I really love to experiment. And I mean, not just like sexually, but like in literature.
Oh,
um,
the
oh
memories, Finn.
gosh,
I
let's not
know.
even get into that, Carly. But as you know, I'm a very experimental person.
Yes, yes.
And you can write an experimental novel and spend 2 years of your life writing this experimental novel and then realize it didn't work out and you're really screwed because it's been 2 years of your life. But you can spend 20 minutes writing an experimental flash fiction piece. And if it doesn't work out, who cares? Just change it in another 20 minutes. So that's another thing I love about it.
Sure, 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 sure. So, how did the price of cookies start? Was the first story in the novella, was that where it started, or was that like, oh no, it was the 15th story and that's where it started, and then everything else is kind of whatever? How did it start? Where did it come from?
Actually, that's very astute because the very first story was the story called The Price of Cookies. And I just wrote it I was in a flash fiction workshop and I wrote it in like 5 minutes or something like that. And then I put it away and I thought, oh, well, it's a 5 minute story. I'm not going to try to submit it anywhere or anything like that. And I came back to it, I don't know, it was like a year later. And I was like, oh, I wonder if I could write another story around the clerk who's mentioned in this story. And so I did, and I think that maybe, like, by the 3rd story that I had written in that collection, I knew it was gonna be a collection. Whereas with, like, The Clothes Make the Man, I wrote the last story for that novella in Flash first,
Oh,
and then as soon as I had written it, I shared it with a couple of authors, and they were like, "We need more Arthur." And so that was why I ended up going back and writing that whole arc with Arthur, but I'd actually written the last story first.
okay. And then, okay, so then for the price of cookies, did you write all of those stories linearly? I mean, did you say, oh, here's this first story called The Price of Cookies. Oh, now let me write this next little story. Now let me write the next. And then that's how they ended up in the published novella? Or was it just kind of like, here's a whole bunch of stories that I've written around this theme. Now, how do I put them together? Did you curate it that way, or did you just go, nope, linear, I'm just gonna write story after story?
So it was a little bit from column A, a little bit from column B. Every story in this collection was intended to be connected, but I didn't write linearly. I think what happened was as I was writing, so I wrote the first one and then I decided to investigate. The clerk had mentioned her son in that story. So I decided to write a story about the son. And then when I started thinking like, "Oh, I think this could be a collection," I kind of just started jotting down, like, as I write, like, other people that kind of just were mentioned in stories, but that I thought might be interesting to explore. And I would just like jot down their name and who they are. And I don't think I wrote any of them. I don't think I definitely did not write them in the order in which they appear in the book. I want to say that the first 3 I wrote in order, and then the rest of them I kind of pieced them together based on how I felt the arc would work out. And then the last one was intentionally written to be the last one because it ties everything up.
Okay. Okay.
It's very different from writing a book, you know, like
It
it's
really
way more
is.
intuitive for me.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. Because I feel like there's that sense. I mean, if of that linear story, like here is point A, here is point to your Canadian dual citizenship. Here's point A, here's point Z. And then I need to follow B, C, D, E, F to get there.
Right.
That's kind of how we think, I think, how we think stories are supposed to work. But I remember when I was in graduate school reading the works of Native American authors. I remember Sherman Alexie really, really well. And guess what? They don't go A to Z. They don't write that linearly. And so I always find it fascinating when people are able to say, okay, I've got this. Okay, and here's A, here's Z. But you know what? Everything in between up for grabs. Everything in between. I'm not necessarily going to go B, C, D, E. I may go A, M, X, F, and it's still going to work.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm actually really fascinated with that whole idea of plot structure because, I teach plot structure but I also am very pro anti-Western story structure and books that step out of that. Oh, but you have to have this, and then the rising action, and then this, and then this, and then you have the climax. Sometimes two, if it's a lesbian romance, and then the falling action. And
Only two? Only
only
two?
listen, listen, Carly. We said we weren't going to talk about that.
Okay, okay,
It was
okay.
a one time. All right. Anyway, so but I really love books that subvert that idea of you have to have that plot structure. And in fact, my current work in progress that has just gone to beta readers does not follow that standard story arc. And it both terrifies me and excites me to think that because of the novella and Flash, I kind of gave myself this freedom to be like, you know what, maybe I don't have to follow what the Western world says I have to follow in order to have a successful novel. But on the other hand, that ingrained feeling of me, like, this doesn't follow this, is terrifying, and thinking, like, nobody is ever going to love this book because I wrote what I wanted to write as opposed to what other people might want to read.
And then how do you get over that? How do you get over that sense of, oh, nobody's gonna love it, but I do. And so I'm still gonna go forward.
I feel like I have a little bit of a safety net because my writing partner and I are writing this series of queer Shakespeare retellings, which we're so freaking excited about. And we 100% follow the basic structure.
You just went mute. You just went mute.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
I just wanted to tell that I'm recording right now. Anyway, so I think that it's hard to balance that fear. But when you have, like, for me, the safety net is if the Shakespeare books become like, these are the books we're giving to the world that we think you're going to love, which also we love. Like, I don't feel I'm compromising anything with those. They're
Right.
absolutely ridiculous and humorous. And I'm absolutely 100% in love with every single thing we're doing with them. but my hope is that that Shakespeare series will be like, here's my books that will be my safety net so I can write my weird, obscure little don't make sense to anyone but a handful of 5 people, but maybe ultimately win like a Giller Award or something.
Yeah.
So, you know.
I you're gonna understand me. Other people out there, hi, other people out there, are gonna go, oh Jesus. That's very Taylor Swiftian of you.
Exactly.
In the sense that, okay, when Taylor Swift first came out, boom, she had her kind of music. She was a country artist, so on and so forth, and she built a huge following. Well, a big following. And that allowed her to then kind of go, okay, that's all well and good. That's great. What about this? And what about this? And what about this? And she went genre hopping. And it was her fans, it was her followers who went along with her. And so that kind of seems, like I said, it's very Taylor Swifty. It's like, look, here's my foundation. Here's the stuff that you're gonna read, that you're gonna say, okay, yeah, solid stuff. And then because of that, this other stuff that I'm gonna show you, that's like maybe a little left of center, maybe a little left of what you're not used to, or what you don't expect.
Yeah, which is funny because
Here.
we're definitely pushing people from their comfort zones with our queer Shakespeare as
Sure.
well. So I feel like my capacity to make things weird is unlimited, you
Oh,
know? So
hello.
like, I mean, listen, Carlene.
Weird, awkward, yeah, all of that.
But also charming and adorable. Like I feel like that's
Completely.
something I have going for me. But so yeah, absolutely. So I'm Taylor Swifting it. I feel like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's just I gotta do what I want to do. And I'm the worst writing advice I ever got when I first started writing was somebody told me, don't ever switch genres because the reader won't follow. And I thought that was the most ridiculous advice I got because
Yeah.
I read across genres. Like I currently have
Yeah.
this like adorable poetry collection and like this book of flash fiction stories and Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro and Marge Piercy. Like these are the books that I have on my desk currently
Sure.
that I'm reading. None of them have anything in common with the other one. Why should I be expected to write only within one genre?
Thank you. Thank you.
That's my
So,
soapbox for the day.
and it's a fabulous soapbox, which now brings me to, what's your favorite Taylor Swift song?
I'm going to be honest with you, Carlene. I do not know any Taylor Swift songs. I am a fan of Taylor Swift, the person,
Sure.
and I've heard Taylor Swift music when I've like been on YouTube listening to something and then it switches into like the things they think I'll like and then Taylor Swift comes on and I've definitely been sitting there like listening to classical music or something and then all of a sudden I'm like I've been listening to like Miley Cyrus for a while and I'm like, "Oh, I kind of like this." So that happens, but I'm not a Swiftian, or is that what it's called, a Swiftian, right?
Swifty.
Yeah, I'm not
Swifty.
a Swiftie.
Okay, and that's cool. That's cool. But
I
what I'm
feel
gonna
we can still love each other even so.
oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt, but I'm gonna give you a challenge.
Okay.
I'm gonna give you a challenge. I want you to go to YouTube sometime.
All right.
Just you're like, hey, I've got 10 minutes.
Okay.
And go to Taylor Swift's channel.
Okay. I'm writing this on my planner, because as you
if
know, if I don't write things on my planner,
it's
they
if
don't get
it's not in
done.
your planner, you don't do it.
Exactly.
Um, and first of all, kind of like go randomly
All right.
a little bit, just to kind of get a taste. Just a taste. But then I want you to listen to some of the songs from her most recent,
Okay.
the Tortured Poets Department.
Okay. All right.
Because from a poetic point of view, because I think having especially in the price of cookies, I think you write poetically, even though these aren't classified as poetry.
It's interesting because my publisher, Marion Lougheed, who is a poet, I'm always saying to her, I'm not a poet. And she's like, but you've written poems and you've written poetic stories. So how can you keep saying you're not a poet? But I think that maybe that's part of that imposter syndrome. Like I read these incredible poems that I'm like, wow, they manipulate language in a way that I want to do. And then Marion's like, but you manipulate language in a
But
way
you
that other
do.
people want to do.
Yeah,
So,
but you
yeah.
do. Yeah. You're I found the stories in The Price of Cookies definitely had a lyricism to them. That I felt was poetic without being poetry.
Yeah.
Um, and I think from that perspective that you will listen to particularly the lyrics on the Georgia Post Department.
All right.
And not necessarily, this is not me trying to turn you into a Swiftie. This is not
No,
that.
I'm
This
telling you right now,
is
I am promising you that I am going to go listen to this because of
I
you.
th- I think from the perspective of a writer, I think you would listen to the songs and listen to the lyrics. And I think that you'd find a thread, you'd find a common bond where
All
you'd kind of
right.
go, "Oh wow. Okay, wow. That's yeah, that's more than just the lyrics to a nifty song.
All right. I'm
That's
definitely
fascinating."
willing to try.
Yeah.
Like, sharing music is my love language, and I'm definitely like super excited when people turn me on to something that I haven't listened to before. I've just recently, my writing partner, Andrew Buckley, turned me on to this group called the Moon Loungers, which does these like really interesting updates of older songs. And so it's like super, super. So that'd be my challenge to you, Carlene, is to go look up the Moon Loungers and maybe like listen to their version of Maybe I'm Amazed by Paul McCartney and Wings, and
Okay.
then get back to me and tell me what you think about it. And in the
Okay.
meantime, I'll listen to Taylor Swift and we can share
Yeah.
our views about that.
Yeah. And like I said, this is not me saying you're gonna fall in love with Taylor Swift and buy all her albums and just listen to her music on repeat. This is not me saying that. But like I said, I think from a lyricist, from a writing point of view, I think you'll find it fascinating. And what I find fascinating too, I've learned about Swifties.
Yes,
Some of them are, I mean, they know things.
right.
They know things.
Like,
They'll listen to a lyric from a song on an album, and they'll go, "Oh, that's clearly about so and so."
oh, I see.
Or
Yeah,
that clearly references the time that,
right.
and I'm like, okay, you know what, I don't know about all the intricacies of Taylor Swift's life. I don't need to know all of the intricacies of
Exactly.
Taylor Swift's life. um but I will admit that there are some times where, like, after listening to a song or reading the lyrics, and then the Swifties come in and go, and this is why they're important, I go, oh, okay, well, that makes sense.
It must be hard to be a singer in that situation because I know that in my works, I might have things that come from individuals in my life, but it's never about a person in general. There was an ex that I did write quite a lot about many years ago. We're not going to get into that. But in general, if you read one of my stories, you might think, "Oh, I bet this is about that time that Finn." But it probably isn't unless it's
Right.
actually creative nonfiction. So
Right.
I can think I think that poets, like non-musical poets, also get this, that for some reason people read
Sure.
poems as being the truth of the author's life far more than
100%
they do about
autobiographical.
yeah, far more than they do about novels or short stories even.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, and like, I mean, to their credit, Taylor Swift is known for saying, yeah, that's about my ex.
Right?
Yeah, it is. But but I think, and this is something I kind of found in The Price of Cookies too, is that, and why I do think it's in some ways, in my addlepated mind, very Swiftian, is that this stuff has nothing to do with me,
Right.
but it has
Exactly.
everything to do with me.
Right.
There's that thread that I go, I've never experienced that. I've never done that, but I've known that person, or I've felt like that person.
Yes.
It's like, so that experience is not mine, but that experience is mine.
Yes, I try to teach this to my students all the time, that your reader has to relate to what you're writing. And that
Mhm.
doesn't mean they've had the exact same experience you're writing about, but some kind of universal feeling, tapping into human beings' simmering rage or their sense of guilt or the shame they have over something that happened. And maybe it's not that exact same situation,
Mhm.
but if you can tap into that kind of universal feeling, people are going to relate to it, even if they can't relate specifically to the time that you lost your
Right.
underwear at the laundromat and then hooked up with, I mean,
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I think you'll really like those lyrics,
All right.
because I think you'll see it in something other than your own work. You'll see it in like a completely different media,
So now people
you
are
know?
going to watch this and they're going to be like, their takeaway from it is going to be to read The Price of Cookies and listen to Taylor Swift. Maybe,
Yes.
maybe at the same time.
And I would consider that a success.
I would too. I absolutely I'm gonna like wave my book around. Look, I waved everybody else's books around. Now I'm gonna wave
Yes,
mine
please.
around. And so Carlene, I also did something with this book that most people don't do, in that I added bonus content at the
You
end
totally did.
of the weirdness that is Finn. Like, so
Hmm.
like you have the whole like literary part in the front, and then you have Finn's brain in the back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was something else I found very interesting about this book, is that I started it and it's like, okay, here's praise for The Price of Cookies and here's praise for Finn. Woo. Yay.
I mean, I am
You
pretty
know,
praiseworthy.
completely. And I'm reading all the praise and going, yes, 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 I know. I've known Finn. I know this. And then it's like, okay, here's the title page with all the legal crap.
Yeah,
And your perfectly wonderful
Lord
dedication.
Gordo. Yeah.
Yes. And then it's like, okay, price cookies. And then all of the stuff we usually see, all of the front matter we usually expect
Yeah.
is at the end.
Yeah. That was intentional. We wanted to just dive people right into the world and then be like,
Hmm.
"Oh, okay, thanks for being with us, and here's the rest."
Yeah. Why all of the bonus content of your weirdness?
I think that so I did that author letter at the end that was kind of explaining that. So to me, when my publisher approached me and said, "Did you want to do some bonus content at the end of this?" I said yes, if I can do like the weirdest stories that I have out there. And she was all for it. So I sent her a bunch of my weirdest stories, and she picked most of them. The reason I did that, I think, is because it's kind of a stab toward that whole genre hopping thing, that we can read something that this is in our comfort level. We like to read literary, and we like to read stuff that makes us, that breaks our hearts or makes us think, or invites us into the human condition. And also, here's a story about a person in rodeo clown school. So I really kind of was like, sort of a gift for like staying with me for this ride and letting me break your heart. And then also, here's about a time I saw my neighbor's testicles sticking out of his underwear, like that sort of thing. So yeah, it was just a, guess what?
You you have
Yeah.
just come up with the title of your autobiography. And also dot dot dot.
Yeah, that would work really well for me because I
Yeah,
am an and also kind of person, as
you
you know,
are.
like 50 text messages in a row. And also, yeah. I
Yeah.
I just wanted to, I mean, I guess it's kind of almost like if you want, like, if you can't handle me at my Finn's brain at its weirdest, you can't have me at my Finn at my poetic lyricism.
There you go. There you go. It's all a fin or it's none of fin.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
I'm on the olefin side.
You just can't
I'm
get too much. You can get
no,
too much, Finn. I will tell you that, like, I have an expiration date. People don't believe it when they say it, but I promise if you spend too much time with me, you'll be like, please let me have some Finless time.
as someone who has road tripped with you,
Many times.
I have never hit that expiration because there's no one else in the world that I would kind of rather be driving around and go, oh, we need to update Facebook because we just went through Beaver.
Oh, Beaver.
You
Yeah.
know, I
Yeah, and that time
mean,
you made me turn to a life of crime by stealing the
hello.
apple butter from Bob Evans, which we probably shouldn't say this on video because I don't think there's a statute of limitations for
Yeah,
that.
I say next time it's the mixed jelly.
All right, I'm on it.
Just saying, just saying. Okay, well, we're down to our last like 2.5 minutes.
Yes.
So I would like for you to take 45 seconds of that
Okay.
time and tell everybody here, why in the hell should we get the price of cookies? Why?
You should buy the price of cookies because first of all, it's all me and you can't get too much Finn, at least according to Carlene. But also because this is a book about the human condition and it's something that I think everyone can relate to. There's a story for everyone. There's people you can definitely hate and there's people you can definitely love. And I would just really love it if people would support this very kind of newish genre, which is a novella in Flash, and help me to write my next novel by buying this one. That wasn't even 45
Okay.
seconds. That was
It wasn't that was a pitch in Flash. That's what that was a pitch
I
in
mean, I feel like
Flash.
you could have prepped me for that question.
I
Maybe I would
know,
have come up with something a little better.
but that's not the point. That's not the point. The
Right.
point is not prep. The point is chat.
Yeah,
So
100%.
I'm going to hop in and give my little thing that says I agree. Um, go read this. I will put the link in the description to purchase this book. It's available in ebook. It's available in paperback. It's available in paperback in the United States or just Canada.
In the United States
Okay.
and Canada, and all over the world, I believe.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent. So I'll put links in there in the description so that you can get that. But I would say yes, go get this because the wonderful thing about it is that because it's a novella in Flash, um, it's a quote unquote easy read,
Yeah.
and I mean that not in the oh this is a a lower grade level to read. It's short, sweet, to the point, but it's hard hitting. So you'll still get the emotional reactions from this without having to sit there and go, oh Jesus, 350 pages. And it's very easy if you're like, I only have like 10 minutes to read. Okay, go read a couple of those stories. We had a we we had a little we got cut off, and so there's going to be a little editing involved here.
There was
Um,
glitchiness.
so it'll be all kinds of fun. But, you know, our friendship is a little glitchy, so it kind of works out that
Glitchiness is better
way.
than itchiness, so
Thank you. Thank you. Um,
though they have
so
great ointments for that. So
completely. So, as I was saying, I agree. Purchase this book, um, read this book, and enjoy the fact that you don't have to sit and read it all in one sitting. And you don't have to worry so much about, I finished a chapter and oh my God, what's going to happen next to our main characters? Because there are so many main characters
yeah.
that there's the town is the main character. That's our through line. That's our through line. Less so any one or two people throughout the novella, I think.
Yeah.
I think. And I love the fact that in essence, this book has nothing to do with cookies.
No. No.
Not
Although
really.
it does
It does,
definitely
but not
incorporate
really.
baked goods into
Yeah.
everybody's
Yeah.
everybody's life.
Yeah, but that's the I mean, I see that as kind of like that's the connector.
Yeah.
It's not the guts.
Yeah.
It's not like, ooh, I'm gonna read about cookies. Mm.
Yeah, definitely if people go into it expecting that it's going to be all about cookies, it's definitely not. Um it's just yeah, it's
It's a through
definitely a
line.
theme. Like it is a through line that food and how
Yeah.
it's a unifier and also a divider and that sort of thing. But if you're expecting to learn how to make chocolate chip cookies or something like that, that's not going to happen
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah, like each of these little flash pieces, it's not like chocolate chip and then the next one is macadamia and the next one is,
Yeah,
you
although
know,
that's not a bad idea.
kolachkis. It's not a bad idea.
No. My
Go
my
with that.
publisher was joking about how my next book's going to be called The Price of Cupcakes because my wife and I are going driving into Penticton to get Pride cupcakes to support Pride. So I said it's
Nice.
just research for my next book.
There you go. There you go. Tax write-off. Um, so anyway, again, thank you very much, my dear friend Finn, for being my first chat. Um,
I was your
you're
first.
you're my first.
I'm pretty excited about that.
You're my first. But thank you so
First
very
in a lot
much.
of things, if you know
Hello.
what I mean. Oh,
Hello.
you
Love
bring
that.
it out in me, Carly. That's all I can
I
say.
know. I know.
All right, my
Um,
darling. Well, thank
y-
you for having me on. I'm excited for where this whole thing is going to go.
yes, and everybody, please like, please subscribe, please click the links to purchase Finn's book. Um, and everybody have a really great day.
Thanks, Carlene.